Welcome to Trailer Trash Talk, where we talk about trailers before we see the movie. We just watched the trailer for
Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I'm Steve,
And I'm Jay.
and we're just kind of giving what our thoughts on on what we thought of the Annihilation trailer versus kind of what the Mortal Kombat. What we're gonna see with Annihilation. We're gonna watch that next.
Right.
So,
Steve, so what are your expectations after seeing the trailer? You think it's going to be a great movie?
well, I kind of feel like the biggest thing is we kind of saw more. It looks crazier
Right. I agree.
than
It's way
more crazier than kind of like I think they actually got a different director
Yeah.
for this movie for the sequel.
Right.
And it looks crazier, but it's kind of crazy, but also faithful to the kind of video game a little bit. It's a little bit more colorful, don't you kind of think?
Yeah, I'd agree, yeah. And it looks like they've added way more characters from the game.
Yeah, but it looks kind of interesting. I mean, I'm kind of, we kind of watched it and it was really kind of fast, and Liu Kang's got a better haircut. I think his hair is the same. And apparently, I think,
Pretty much everyone else is not the same.
yeah, well, okay, Sonya Blade, played by Billy Madison's teacher from, I'll give her credit where credit's due, but I kind of thought she was sort of, I think they changed her. They changed Jax.
Yeah, I think they lost some star
Well,
power.
I think they lost star power, and I feel like it looks crazier than the first one. But looking at this trailer, what's your anticipation of what we're going to watch coming soon?
I think it's going to be a bad movie, but I hope it's a fun movie.
Fun bad. Well, there is that thing where I feel like a film can be fun and kind of crazy, where it's just ridiculous, where you're just like, you kind of like, because I feel like for me, I'm always one of those people that when I watch, there's never really a bad movie. Like I've never walked out of a bad movie, out of any movie. I think my parents walked out of Pokemon, the first movie, because they thought it was stupid, and Mom actually went and saw The World Is Not Enough. But yeah, I feel like it's just seems a little bit more crazier than the first one. So, without a further ado, we're going to start. Well, we just got out of Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I know, and what a movie.
Yeah, well, so now that we've seen the film and seen the since we just saw the trailer in the movie, how do you feel now?
I guess not great, but it was pretty crazy.
Well, I wonder if you kind of saw how the special effects were.
Right.
They weren't really that great.
No, but I'm wondering for the time, their budget was, because there's some of their just everything going on, I don't know what they spent. But.
Well, and it seemed almost they didn't get back. The thing is if you watched it, they got a new Sonya, Billy Madison's Veronica Vaughn.
I think they got a
different
all new
one.
Characters except for maybe two.
Yeah, I think
Liu Kang and
then they got Christopher Lamar, the Highlander, didn't show up for this one. I think they got a new Raiden as well. I think Liu Kang was the only one that stayed.
And I think maybe Katana.
Katana. But what was pretty cool is that, Jax, I think, lost his arm in the first one.
Right. Oh, I think actually he was just getting enhancement, so he still had his arms. He had an exoskeleton.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just like the Terminator.
Yeah, but I think Jax might have been the star of this movie. I think he was sort of like the comedic relief that actually. He's walking around what the heck's going on?
Yeah, and he had these one-liners, and the thing about one-liners is you've got to have. There's something to them where you've got to have enough charm with one-liners, like, Schwarzenegger's so good at it, I'll be back, trust me. You started it, no more reindeer, stuff like that. And, Stallone had it. You watch the Expendables movies, they kind of they throw out the one-liners, but it's the characters, it's the cast that really make it.
Right.
They put a little charm to it, Will Smith in Independence Day,
Welcome to Earth.
Welcome to Earth, and then when he takes out the cigar and he says, that's what I call a close encounter,
Right.
And it works. And in this film, oh God, the puns were they just didn't make enough sense. Not sense, but they weren't that great.
Right.
But okay, so if it kind of connects to right where let's go through the story. So it kind of connects right where the first one left off. If you remember the first one, it was like, the storm cloud came up, and they were celebrated in like the Buddhist temples and stuff. But then Shao Kahn. Shao Kahn shows up in the sky and says, Mortal Kombat people, from Elseworld, I'm back here for vengeance or something.
And it starts raining evil ninjas out of the sky.
Yes.
And
And then you realize that, they go in and they write, because Christopher Eccleston, the Highlander guy, he decides not to show up, and they got a totally new different guy to play Raiden, and he's young.
Right.
And fit. So, and I feel like this one didn't. Did you feel like this one, the storyline, it did feel more of like the video game in a way?
It did, where there's just like crazy amounts of different characters. And they sort of pop in just for like one fight, and then they're pretty much done. You don't see them again.
Well, and then
there's quite a bit of like loose ends going on, and
and like Annihilation just kind of felt sort of like, I feel like, they sort of, and it could be that it made enough money, but they were like, well, let's just do a sequel. Like they didn't put any passion. I mean, I know we're gonna hit the fourth one or the new one. Do you feel like the new one had a little bit more fan appreciation as opposed to how Annihilation was really kind of just thrown out there?
I guess it sort of depends. It was like definitely almost would make a better movie, but I almost feel like this Annihilation was almost a bit true to the game, because like they were using like the sound effects from the games.
Yeah, and well,
people were using their powers from the games.
Yeah.
So it's sort of I would say is somewhat close to the games.
Well, they also sort of did like they had the camera angles. I think there was one angle where they showed kind of the camera looked like you were
playing a video game.
Yeah, well, it's like the way they were seated.
Right.
And then the story goes, Shao Kahn, who's got the skull helmet, says, "Everybody, I'm here and I'm going to destroy the world." And then Raiden says, "I don't think so," and his eyes turn into electricity. And so basically, it sort of jumps you right in. You could probably watch 1 and 2, and it feels pretty, coherent.
Right.
With the first one, like you didn't feel like you missed something between 1 and 2.
Right.
Because I know we watched this I think last week, so I'm trying to remember.
Right. So Shao Kahn comes in like, I'm merging the worlds together.
Yeah. Not Elseworld. Is it Elseworld?
No, it's Outworld.
Outworld.
Yeah.
And
the Earth Realm.
Earth Realm together, and then Raiden They got a different actor. I guess we said he got a different actor.
Right.
But he's younger, he's thinner,
Right.
and he's got his hair tied like in a ponytail now, and he doesn't wear the hat like he wore in
the first one. Yeah.
First one.
Yeah, and then the whole plot is pretty convoluted. They brought back Katana's mother, Sindel,
and
who's now evil.
Now, Sindel, if you remember from the game, whips her hair. Didn't she have the hair?
She has like hair and like wind and screaming powers.
Yeah.
And so they brought her in, and they're like, "Oh, we've got to figure out what's going on with Sindel to close the portals." And then it sort of gets. Then Raiden's like, "We've got to split up."
Yeah, and he's like, she's like, and she was it Katana? Katana was basically like going, "Mother," and she's like, it's the cheesiest because she's like, "You will fight me" or something.
Yeah, it felt a lot like a WWE match.
Yeah. And it just felt insane. And the thing about it is I felt like they didn't have enough. At least with the first one, he put a little bit of effort into it, and I mean, not effort, but like there was
the storyline. Was crazy, but it made sense.
Right. Exactly. I felt kind of like because like I think I had to ask you when we were watching this one. I was like going, what? Could you pause this for a second? What's going on?
Right.
And you had to pause and go, okay, so this is this guy, and I'm like going, okay, I got you. You know. So I'm kind of like, because Annihilation, I was just like. I felt like I should have taken notes watching that movie.
Right. Yeah, and then he just kept sort of getting crazier. There's like these like orb sphere things that they ride through the center of the earth for a second, and then I don't know.
It was like and it also could be too. We're looking at this as 30-year-olds.
Right.
And so. And it's kind of the same thing with like a kids watching, when you watch like kids TV shows on Saturday morning, when you were, the time watching the show feels a lot longer. And I felt like this one, if I was a kid, expanding with the first one, felt like it was a little bit long. Like the first one felt like it was longer.
Right.
This one just felt like it was just like bam, 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 bam.
Stuff was constantly happening, but we weren't really sure why.
Why exactly? I just kind of got. I mean, like I thought it was like you look at the poster. The poster looks cool because it's like the dragons breaking apart, and like and you're thinking, oh, this is great, and then you go and see the movie and you're just like, well, that was something. At least it was close to the video game.
Right.
I mean. I think what did we like with this one? What do you do? I mean, like I felt like it was one of those films where I felt like it was more colorful than the first one.
Right.
And it's just, but the fun of the first one wasn't there, or like it didn't feel like like it didn't feel. I was not as like I said, I was engaged, but I was completely confused.
Right.
Or not confused, but just like going, okay, this is just.
It's sort of just like not almost random collection of just like fight scenes with different characters.
Exactly. It's like it's almost kind of like someone took the Mortal Kombat game and said, okay, we're gonna watch. It's sort of in the same way. I was listening to, there was an X-Men TV show that came out right before the 90s show back in 89. And it was a pilot episode. And the one thing they were talking about is that with the X-Men show, it was like they would show, like, they would go to Asteroid M and they would fight, the Colossus would fight Juggernaut, and you'd have like a 5-second scene where they fight each other. Then you have, they've got so many characters in like 30 minutes, and it kind of felt like you had 2 hours to explain this. I felt like with Annihilation, they rushed.
Right.
And it was just like, let it breathe. Let them just, give it character arc.
Right. Yeah. If anyone watched this movie and hadn't like played the games,
I would, even if you like put this on and you like knew vaguely about the games, I felt like this one was like, this is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, they didn't explain a lot.
Yeah. So on a scale, but I thought it was cool. It was a little bit colorful.
Right.
I'll give it this. It was more colorful. The costumes were closer to the game. It just lacked in story.
Right.
And I felt kind of like, whereas I felt like the first one you felt like it had like a cohesive story where it was like the realms, he's got to get everybody together to fight into this combat thing. Annihilation kind of says, okay, well, here's a new threat, but they didn't give it enough. They kind of wrote it, but they didn't make it.
Yeah, and then they try to add like twist in there, and it was like, it's already too confusing. You don't need
like you can do a good twist, but you've got to like you look at something like Unbreakable or Split. Because you've seen?
I haven't seen Split. I've seen Unbreakable. Yeah.
Okay, well you've seen Split. Well, Split it's sort of one of those films where it's like, I'm going to give you like kind of a quick thing.
Right.
They basically, these three girls, they come back from the mall, they get in their car, their dad picks them up. Their dad gets whacked by Professor X. Professor X, who plays Split, plays the Kevin Crumb.
Right.
Kevin Crumb takes them and holds them hostage. But he's got 4 different he's got like 15 different personalities. So it deals with that. And at the end, there's this line where he says, didn't this wasn't there this thing that happened? And Split at least felt like, it connected it, but it connected it to Unbreakable. But it wasn't so, but it did it smartly.
Right.
Here I felt like it was like, they just basically, Mortal Kombat 1 must have not have done so well that they probably just half-assed Annihilation, I guess. Don't you?
Maybe, yeah, I'm not sure if they were like, I don't know, if it was just trying to be a just fan service for people who like were really into the game.
To the game.
And
Or,
not
I mean,
trying to be a good movie.
now I've heard Legacy does that well.
Okay.
And from what I've heard is, I've heard Legacy's well. My friend Terrence talked about, there's like, I was telling him I was doing this Mortal Kombat podcast, and he's like, you need to do Legacy 2, and there's like an animated film called Scorpion's Revenge or something. And then I looked on, I was watching like Saturday morning cartoons on YouTube, and there was an actual animated Mortal Kombat TV series. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I watched it a little bit when I was a kid, and I vaguely remember like Sub-Zero is a good guy in that one, I think, and then sort of like in this movie, Sub-Zero does show up with like the same scar in his eye, and he's a good guy, but he's only there for like 2 minutes maybe, and then you don't see him the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and like, but I mean, it was sort of like, and that was the thing about Annihilation was it just felt like if it had a better script, and it had, I mean, and Paul W. S. Anderson didn't even show back up, who the Resident Evil guy. I mean, he could have done a better job.
No, definitely.
So on our scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the greatest film ever, to 1, I would give it at least a 4, maybe a 5 if I was a huge fan, and if I was engaging every part of, like if I was like, I'll watch anything that's Mortal Kombat. Like it gives me hope that the Legacy, and I mean, you saw the new one, after watching Annihilation, where you're like, well, Mortal Kombat 2021 doesn't seem that bad.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, and but I felt like that was sort of, I felt like Annihilation, they really sort of, I don't know what happened. It's just, if it was the script or if it was
and then I don't know, what really got me was the sort of the ending, like they sort of tried to go all in on the CGI for like the climactic final battle, and it flopped pretty bad.
Well, and do you think they were just, maybe, and it could also be maybe they were trying to make a sequel, and then they were, because I read, I think in the IMDb that they were wanting to do a third one, and I feel like, and I think that's the thing, is like you can't really make a sequel and then make a third, you can't, you have to keep us interested as an audience, and not, you can't go from, like Lord of the Rings, for instance, you can't go from, here's the ring, and then you have to, it almost felt like if this was like a Lord of the Rings film, it was like they took the two towers and they just ran through two towers to get to Return of the King. Like, it felt kind of like, and I think Annihilation didn't do so well that they actually ended up rebooting it with the Mortal Kombat Legacy, and then the new one, which they kind of finally said, we're going to make it R. But Annihilation just, it had potential, but just didn't execute.
Right.
So, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll be back on our Mortal Kombat journey with Legacy next week, or next time we get together. Thank you guys.
All right. See ya.
See ya. Bye.